think we're live on Facebook. So, as always, I find this quite an interesting challenge to be present on all these platforms. So, if anybody's out there and listening, do me a favour and let me know if you can. Hi, is that Alison? How you doing? So, just I'm going to give it a couple of minutes as people sort of check in. And as always, check that technology is working. So anybody out there who can let me know, A, that you can hear me, B, if not, I will then address the issue. So let me know if you can hear me, guys on Instagram. Can you hear me over there? Zoom, let me know, and Facebook, let me know. So I'm just going to hang fire for a little bit. Facebook decided to change everything this morning about how they look. So it's a completely different page. I'm just having a look at that. So today's session basically is we're going to be talking about, what are we talking about? We're talking about, oh, there we go, found it. Yeah, all good. So Liz, thank you. Corinna, thank you. Right, okay. Looks like we're live all over the place. I think there's a delay when it gets to Facebook. So why having an awesome sort of set of biomechanics assessment tools just isn't enough when you're trying to get your clients to adhere to their program. That's really the whole subject. And it's spun off from several situations I've been in throughout the last couple of weeks. Obviously, everything that's going on with COVID, with the idea around behaviour change, which is going to be a hot topic for a lot of us now, if it isn't already. So that's really what I wanted to talk about. However, I am fully aware that this session has always been advertised as a Q&A, a live Q&A, where you get to ask anything you like. So that still stands. So what I need to know is, before I begin, is if anybody out there actually has any questions that you want us to go through today. Now that can relate to anything, or it can relate to the subject that we're going to talk about, which is behaviour change and understanding our clients, how we get them to adhere to their program. So I know for me, it's definitely been a struggle and a frustration. I feel like I've now developed a way of addressing that, and it's some of those methods that I have found that I wanted to present to you today and sort of just talk about and have a discussion. So just going through, let's have a look. Instagram, great, we've got loads over there. So Insta guys, feel free to post your questions. As always, bear with me as I scroll through and see who we've got and wave at you all. Brilliant, brilliant. Yes, oh God, can you hear him? Yes, I was going to say, if you can hear some snoring in the background, that's my dog, because my mic is here. My dog is on the floor and he is snoring away. So I managed to tire him out. Hiya Tom, how you doing? So I managed to tire him out with a long walk this morning. So I can't believe you could hear him. Oh dear. So yes, I have a snoring dog on the floor. Forgive me for that. So I'm going to hang fire just a few more minutes with to see if anybody's got any questions. I'm aware there's a delay over on Facebook, so I'll just leave that over in the corner there and hang fire for Instagram. Hey guys, hey Sam. Hi there, the soulfit.co. Brilliant. Back in live, Chris Taylor, PS Health and Wellbeing, Mackie. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Mark. Good to have you along. The Rider, Drew Guard, Amit, Kumar, Hazel. Oh, hello, Hazel. Messaging with Hazel. Trey Freya, RJ Sports Therapist. Alison, RJ Sports Therapist. Back in Balance, who's hearing my doggy snoring in the background. Fantastic. Oh, got more. Oh, you're all kicking in. Right, I'm going to have to come away from being a gourmet face in the screen. I'm not getting any questions come through, which is usually the case, ironically, on a live Q&A, which makes it slightly awkward unless I have something prepared. So first of all, I want to ask you guys a question. And what I'd like you to do, it's really simple. This is supposed to be interactive, so I'm going to ask you to interact. And I would like to ask you, first of all you need to do is type a Y or an N. So Y for yes, N for no. Hi, Raoul. Good to see you along. My first question is, who watching this has had a client not adhere to the homework that you have set them? So who in this live has had any client at any point not do the homework you have set them? So you just type a yes, sorry, a Y or a yes, or you could do a thumbs up. We're getting Y's coming through. If you've never had a client, all your clients do everything you've asked them, they do all the homework, then you can just type an N or a no. So it's looking relatively unanimous over on Instagram. I've got Saif, Ali, Mohammed, great to have you along on Zoom. So we're just getting started, and I've just asked the question, who has a client not adhere to their homework? So, yes, lots, Raoul says, okay. So no matter what you tell them, have you told them what to do? You've given them resources, you're telling them what to do, you've shown them what to do, and you're saying, yes, they still didn't do their homework. Is that correct? So you can confirm over on Facebook, yes. Carl says yes. Laura, Stevie, James, all saying yes and concurring. Okay. So let me ask you another question. Who has gone on courses about exercise, movement, nutrition, biomechanics to try and help more people? So you want to help more people, so you go on more courses. You've got these people who are not doing the homework. So who has done more training to help more people? Again, you can just type a Y for yes, an N for no. If you've just done your basic qualification and you're helping people, then you can leave that. So we've got Saif is a PhD in exercise physiology, fantastic. We've got James over there, recovery, okay, fantastic. We've got more people joining in on Insta, which is great. So we're saying yes, you've been on courses. Rachel, thank you. Alison, yes, fantastic. And again, it's just seeing interested in biomechanics, fantastic. So when you've done those extra courses in movement and exercise and biomechanics and even a PhD in exercise physiology, nutrition, do you still have clients who do not adhere to their homework? Type a Y for yes. Raoul's a corrective exercise specialist, fantastic group exercise instructor. Charlie, how you doing? So yeah, Lewis, hi. So yeah, just type a Y if you have clients who do not do their homework. Even though you've done extra training to try and help more people in movement and exercise and nutrition and all that stuff, do you still find? Charlotte, hi, good to see you. So yes, and this is generally the case. So something which is a really hot topic right now that you will start to see, if you haven't already, in the bodies of people who are sort of governing UK Active, Sport England, who've got all the funding for our industry, SIMSPA, who are now setting standards. A sort of another side to it, which I know you'll be aware of, some of you may have some training in already, is actually behavior change. Behavior change is going to be a big buzzword, but exactly what does it mean to us in our businesses, in our practice, and how can we take advantage of it? Because it's quite, we might classify it within the psychology area of what we do. So I know that that will be familiar for many of you, is the idea of psychology. And it's a massive subject because it's so subjective and ambiguous, even in the research fields, and the people who become psychologists and they do degrees in it. If you ever study that aspect of working with clients, it's quite a tricky one, probably more so than nutrition and biomechanics, where there's some way of measuring it. With psychology, it's very subjective, very personal, very difficult in terms of the way it's measured. But there are things that we can start to do to really understand behavior change. And there are some resources that I'm going to point you towards and talk about that I think could be helpful. But I do think behavior change and mental health, this kind of subject area, is a huge area that if we're not already looking at and exploring and studying in some way, we're gonna start to get left behind, and we may misinterpret or misunderstand problems that we face when we're trying to help clients towards long-term quality of life, physical health, improved biomechanics, improved diet, everything else. So I know you know what I'm talking about in terms of both the questions I've posed you and the problems that sit alongside those. So I'm not for any, my intention is not to patronize in any way. This particular webinar is purely to open up the discussion, and I invite all of you to offer your own insights, suggestions, ideas, guidance towards resources and your experiences to be able to help each other. This isn't just simply about me doing a monologue, or it certainly feels like that. I'm trying to bring us together, provoke thought and discussion that should hopefully spin off into us working alongside each other to explore resources, education providers, platforms, research, into how we can better help and serve our clients. So I'm just going to have a quick look back through. Zach, hi. Nikki, how you doing? Kerith, great to have you along. Family, not guilt. Interesting. Raoul, start doing a course on behavior change. Yes. If they don't do the homework, I send them to David Goggins' video. Yeah, I read David Goggins' book. If that's not motivation for anyone, I don't know what is. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of the extreme end of the scale. So yeah, David Goggins, really great book. Certainly left me kind of like going, oh, I want to do an ultra. I'm not sure if I'm still in that frame of mind, but he certainly was motivational when you look at what he's done. So thanks for that, Mark. So I think we need to start exploring the idea that old behavior change concepts, ideas, theories, models, tactics, techniques may need to alter based on the fact that behavior has now changed. Attitudes towards being physically active, going to the gym, ways to be active are all changing on all aspects of the scale. So what I mean by that is you've got several demographics now that we have the potential to support and help. So you've got the gym bunnies who are just kind of raving to go back. They cannot wait to go back. They're all up for going back with whatever stipulations are in place. That's one category. That's the easy category. I'm not really talking about those guys. They're just going to come, hopefully wash their hands, use spatial awareness, and crack on again. They're really the easiest demographic for us, should they be a potential client. You've then got the demographic that used to be going to the gyms, that is now nervous, afraid, anxious, vulnerable, and so seeing that as a problem environment, either because of their own circumstance or the way they've been influenced by us being one of the last demographics permitted back to work due to the risk based on the environments within a gym. So how do we tap into that behavior? You've also got the people who are now wanting to join a gym who didn't before. They've been influenced by social media. They've been inspired by the fact the government have said you need to go out and move. Exercise is the answer to a lot of problems. And they're going to be new to the gym, and we can potentially gain access to those new clients. How do we then work with those in terms of behavior, psychology? Finally, you've got probably the largest population that could potentially become or be one of our potential clients, or the type of people we work with. The type of people who will never go to a gym, not interested in a gym, intimidated by a gym, can't afford a gym, but still need to be educated or guided on physical activity. So there's a whole plethora, and I'm just being generalistic now to try and inspire, kind of provoke your thinking towards these new attitudes and behaviors towards movement, because it's changing, it's changed, it's shifting, and we also need to take that in mind when we may think about our previous education about behavior and coming out of lockdown when eventually the gyms do open. For some of you who are already out in parks or even in your facilities working one-to-one or in small groups or whatever you're able to do right now, how has this whole circumstance changed and is still changing the behavior of our present clients and our potential clients? Is there an opportunity here to help more people by gaining more skills in how to communicate and address behavior and behavior change? So behavior change has always been a topic for body practitioners. So when I talk about you guys, us collectively, that's exercise professionals, personal trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, sports coaches, manual therapists, who else? Pilates teachers, yoga teachers, etc. The clinicians I hold slightly separate, because I think quite a few of those guys are now back to work to try and help unburden the NHS. However, I think we have a role in that, and that's kind of what I want to, again, provoke in your thinking. Can we help more people with an understanding of behavior change, how to facilitate it through digital platforms, potentially these new business models, and then face-to-face with a different environment? Because potentially many of us are going to be limited commercially on serving the number of people we were serving before in the same space or in the same time frame. So these bringing to light these questions and conversations can potentially help us look at ways to become educated in helping maybe demographics we haven't been able to help before. So something that I trained in many years ago, back in '98, was I gained skills as a counsellor. Now, it's not a skill that I have seen talked about necessarily for a personal trainer to gain, and yet we always nod when we say we're a bit of a counsellor. You know, in our movement session, you know, we end up listening to all their problems and their lifestyle and things like that. It's like, oh, yeah, it's part of the job. How about we gain some of those skills, or certainly look at them and explore them in more detail to take advantage of that opportunity to really promote behavior change? And they're the kind of skills I want to talk around, because that's where I have some training, some experience in terms of counselling. Now, you're not necessarily counselling them in terms of the true definition of counselling, but the skills a counsellor has can definitely help. So I'm just going to pause a moment and ask if anybody out there is a trained counsellor or a psychologist, or a mentalist, maybe any Derren Browns out there, anybody who has training in the sort of counselling, psychology, those kind of fields. Can you just, if you're happy to share, type Y for yes, or let me know your qualification, your background. because that will then potentially enable me to utilize your ideas and input, which is open to everybody, by the way, and also allow me to read, see if I've got any questions. So yes, Alison, I agree, and that is exactly the point one of the points I want to raise. So Alison's also talking about clients lying, and I want to kind of talk around that idea, because I think that's really important. Why would they lie? You know, what is the psychology behind that? And how can we change that behavior to draw true, real information out of them? So Alison's obviously indicating that she knows they were lying. So either she found out later, they confessed later, or it just didn't make sense based on the information they were giving you. So yeah, not uncommon, I'm afraid, Alison. So Raoul, yes, start doing a course on behavior change. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm not getting any questions come in. Forgive me, everybody. I am across several platforms here. The joys of digital presenting. So when you start to look at and understand behavior change, certainly the modern behavior changing that's going on right now, and some of the skills that go along with that, there may be new resources that you haven't been aware of before. If I start to point you towards some, definitely have a pen and paper, by the way, guys, just to write some of this stuff down. I'll give you a minute to do that. Grab a pen, grab a paper. I am a pen and paper girl myself. I've got one ready here. But if you have a device that you can type into at the same time, you're more skilled than I am. But feel free to start writing some of the resources down that I'm going to talk about. So I think counseling as a skill set for a personal trainer is underrated, and it should be part of our automatic training, is to be able not to counsel, sorry, but the skills of a counselor. So let's talk about what they might look like, because when you are a personal trainer, you're working with somebody and you're talking to them in a consultation, what's going on is usually relatively easy to analyze. So let me try and give you examples. When you ask somebody to squat and the knees cave in, you can see that, that's obvious. You have a trained eye as a movement professional. If you're a manual therapist, you might use a technique, it's uncomfortable, okay, that's a sore area, that might indicate something. That's kind of easy. In terms of the psychology, what we might see in a client is things like we might be reading body language, we might be listening to their tone or their vocabulary to understand their mindset. Are they motivated? Are they upset? And it's understanding how far we take this. So I'm talking about this guiding us towards understanding their psychology to better serve them with exercise, not to be a psychologist. I just need to highlight that. So that there may well be mental health issues there, and I certainly have a resource to send you towards if you want to look at gaining qualifications in mental health awareness. So Platinum Training Institute, so you can write that one down. The Platinum Training Institute at the Queen's Belfast University now have 2 qualifications online. They have a level 2 awareness in mental health, and they have a level 4 qualification, both of which my understanding is you can access online, whether that's through live tutorials or through books and resources they put together. So that's Platinum Training Institute, a level 2, a level 4 awareness in mental health. That's one side of things. Where I want to talk about is when a client's coming in, how do we communicate and talk to them to draw out information, to understand their behavior, their habits, and to then motivate them towards improving their behavior. Generally, they're in the physical state they're in when they get to us because of their lifestyle and their habits. Some of those may be bad habits they want to change, and it's really that side that I want to explore with you. It is, Raoul. One day maybe you could fly over here from India and come and do our training for sure. So, and then Laura, lots of clients are really negative around exercise and nutrition, and they think of it as a punishment. Interesting. Laura, no official qualifications, Been reading lots of books on mindset and behavior. That's fantastic, Laura. Good to hear. Thanks for sharing that. So one of the things we want to try and get to in our consultation is understanding why. So let me ask you something again. Have you ever made a New Year's resolution and it's not lasted? You. I'm talking about you, not your client. I'm talking about you. Robbie, you as well. Raoul, you. Martin, Susie, all the people out there. All you need to do is type Y for yes. Have you ever made a New Year's resolution and not kept it? I have. Saif is saying physical state, really big problem here. Robbie, yes. Stevie, yes. Yeah, motivational interviewing. We're going to talk about that. Stevie, yes, absolutely. Martin is sharing in here. There is a make every conversation count. That's brilliant. Thanks for that, Martin. I shall take that. Stevie's never made a New Year's resolution and not kept it. Harm, hi there, Harm, honey. Yes, Sam has said yes. Chris, yes. So I think even if you haven't, if you like Stevie, who's Stevie, if you haven't, then certainly we know people who don't. It's the big joke that a New Year's resolution never lasts, and you hear about influencers out there saying we shouldn't wait for New Year, we should be making these resolutions all the time. Why wait for New Year? Chances are that we won't be successful. So let me ask you another question to those who said yes, they have not succeeded in their New Year's resolution. Why? Why did you? That's a really good one, Stevie, but that's an opt-out. So Stevie says he doesn't make New Year's resolutions. So you just make resolutions throughout the year, I'm guessing, Stevie, because I know you've made life changes that you've shared previously. So why do you think you did not succeed in that change of behavior? Do you know why? Have you explored why? Did you go into the detail as to why? Did you study that why? Have you eventually made the change now? Was it a new year? Was it a different time of year? If we can start to work through even our own behaviors, it helps us start to empathize a little bit with a client. And empathy is a word I want to come back to in a little while. Or an unrealistic time frame. So Chris, that brings me to another resource that we all know about, which is SMART goaling. When it comes to making a New Year's resolution and maybe setting a time scale that is not gonna, you're not gonna succeed it within that time frame, which might be, I want to squat 100 kilos by Valentine's Day to impress my girlfriend, whatever. That may not be an appropriate time frame. So, but you've recognized it, Chris, and that is so valuable. Back in Balance UK, I think often they were not SMART goals, making it difficult to stick to. Bingo, there you go. I want to really home in on a skill that you've all been given that in my experience of working with industry professionals is still underrated, underused, forgotten, and everyone talks about it. If I said to you SMART goals, you'd all say, yep, I know about them. Yep, learnt those. Alison blames her kids. Blame, being serious. Blaming others, interesting. So, but definitely SMART goals is something I want to talk about in a moment as well. So I think we're in agreement to some degree that we can look into ourselves to be able to study our own behavior and our own inability to change our own behavior. We can recognize that. Chris has recognized a cause of him not being able to change the behavior was an unrealistic time frame. Fantastic. So we have now a tool, or Chris has a tool, that you can take and use to maybe recheck that goal and alter it to then look to whether he can then change that behavior further down the line. So if we can find out the why, we can then look at the how. So you've got what, super easy. I want to squat heavy, I want to lose weight, I want to run faster, I want to make £1 million. Why? Well, looking at the detail, understanding behavior, and then understanding why you haven't. So there's 2 whys in there. Why do you want to change it? Why you didn't? And then understanding and addressing that. To then look at how do I do that? And we could start to shift and apply these techniques to our clients. But it's how we get this information. And so something I want to highlight is one of the problems in our industry is this idea of a 1 hour consultation. Time is a barrier to enabling us to offer things like motivational interviewing, client-centered consultation, time to let them tell you stuff which may not seem relevant to the exercise program, but they are super relevant to helping you understand their mindset, their internal dialogue, their motivations, their barriers. And so certainly in my practice, my first consultation is a minimum of an hour and a half, 2 hours. So rather than following the norms, as long as we're explaining to clients why a particular session may be longer in the beginning, and then it can mean the subsequent sessions are shorter, this allows them and us time to listen and understand right from the go-get maybe where they're coming from. And we may do that periodically, have a longer session, because time is going to enable, rather than rushing through and thinking, well, this client wants to do PT, let's say that first consultation, chances are we won't be doing anything. This is an exploratory session. I need to understand your history and everything else. So I think time is one of the big things. So allowing time to explore, question, and use your communication skills and listening skills to draw out information is one of the guidance tips that I would suggest you make. Is look at your consultation. Do you have time? And always let the client know if they have an appropriate level of expectation about the sessions. Say, look, this first one will enable me to then, we can do loads of the funky stuff next time, but we're probably not going to get a huge amount of training in. So as long as they understand that, yep, no, that's fine, that makes absolute sense. Rather than they turn up thinking they're going to get sweaty, have a great session, they're motivated, and then you say, oh, we're just going to talk for this session. So let them know in advance, plan out, tell them how you work, tell them your system, so that then they can be aware of that. They're not disappointed when they come along. So to be able to strategize and understand that, what we're going to do in that first session, we need skills in communication. So when you think about the means of communication, we can obviously see, we can hear, we can talk, and one of the most underrated skills in communication is listening. Now, to be able to listen, we need to shut up. Because the shutting up and the pauses and the opportunity for the client to think about what you've just said, process it, and then verbalize their thinking, giving them more time to process it. Because when we're talking, our mindset is, I'm thinking about the next thing I'm going to say. The listener is thinking about what you've just said and still trying to process it. So you're ahead and they're behind. So having a pause gives you an opportunity to really absorb and think about, right, what's Rachel just said? What does she want from me? Rather than keep talking, we feel like we've got to keep talking and fill the space. Really great listeners are not uncomfortable with silence. So in our consultation, can we pause? Can we offer an opportunity and just let the client think? And you can watch them potentially. Their eyes may come away, they may look around, and you can see them looking away, and they're thinking, and they're visualizing things. These moments are so valuable, and this is why the time we allow, particularly for an initial consultation or those key consultations between the practical sessions, are so important. The idea of SMART goals give you the fuel to guide your questions around how do we make this goal specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Without those measures in place, it could be tricky to measure whether you've succeeded or not. And it's a fantastic tool. How many of you? Here's another question for you, everybody out there who's listening. I'd like you to all respond, please. You only need to respond by hitting a Y for yes or an N for no. How many of you, 100% of the time, every single client, Get clear and concise, SMART goals at the beginning of working with a client. Big pause. Type yes for no or Y for no. Type an N, type an N for no, type a Y for yes. Yeah, generally. N for no. Hey, Emma, nice to see you again. You're hearing all my secrets now. Good, right, okay. So we're getting a lot of no's or an N's coming in. Okay, let's have a quick look over on Facebook. Yeah, I think they do, Stevie. They've got some good resources. That'll be a good one. Thanks for putting that in. Mark, how you doing? Lindsay, yeah, I agree. So I think we can recognize, yeah, no problem, harm, when you're new and you're with friends, but it is still super important if you want to start practicing good practice. James, gold star, buddy. Trying harder. Right, okay. So what's really important, if you don't have a SMART goal, at what point can you say, look, we succeeded. Yay, high five. At what point do you show them that they have got the value for money? At what point do you say to them, I delivered on my promise? Can you now do me a testimonial video? Tell everyone else about it. If you don't have a SMART goal, so one example that Robbie and I come across all the time are clients that come to us and say, I've got a bit of a niggly shoulder. How do we convert that to a SMART goal? Now that's going to be a challenge. For those of you saying, yes, well done over there on Instagram, well done. How do we make that into a SMART goal? And I'm not saying it's easy. I don't have all the answers. However, we do need to try and create SMART goals. They can adjust. The first one you had, it may change. You may, through your relationship with your client, start to recognize between you one or the other, hang on a minute, I'm not sure this is realistic, or hang on a minute, we've got there now, can we do another one? Or can we alter this based on, they've now realized they want to now run instead of squat, or something may change. It's okay to change. You don't have to stay in that goal as long as it's a partnership. This is another point I want to make. So have you got your pens and papers, guys? I've got some resources for you. So Stevie and let me just go in here. I've lost the speak. So over on Facebook, if you scroll through, there are some resources in there from Martin and Stevie where they're making recommendations on UK Active. I've got some free courses, sorry, UK Coaching, have some free resources. And also Martin put another one in there, so I've lost it. The thread's gone. But a book. So, for example, Motivational Interviewing in Nutrition and Fitness by Dawn Clifford and Laura Curtis. So I've got it on Audible, and they're talking about all the tips, tactics, and techniques based around motivational interviewing. So if your first consultation is all doom and gloom, even if the client has come because they're uncomfortable or they're overweight and they're feeling, down, we've got to try and motivate them to share information, but also they've got to enjoy that session. They've got to feel motivated and centered, or client-centered is another vocabulary that they use that's used in counseling. They have to be pivotal in the decision-making process. So having SMART goaling, using communication skills, being able to ask open-ended questions and then listen, make notes, reflect those statements back to the client so they can hear it again and they say, no, that's not actually what I meant. And they then say it again. So you get to a point that is more clear for both parties. This is a partnership. So one of the things that we risk doing, and I certainly did this in early days, is being an expert. And Clifford and Curtis in their book talk about the expert trap. So one of the issues with being in the expert trap is that we tell clients what to do. Right, Robbie, this is what you're going to do. And we kind of dictate it. We tell them rather than ask permission. And how do you feel about this? And what would you think if I suggested? And it's quite subtle, and it sounds like it's not that far different from, Robbie, what I'd like you to do is, but it is quite powerful in terms of the relationship you're forging over time with a client about the empowerment side of they are the best person to look after their body. You can guide, you can suggest, you can offer advice, you may even use hands-on techniques, but the individual, the client, is still the best person for their long-term physical success, of which you are one of the tools. So having the time to communicate, use our skills to listen, understand, and then verbalizing in a non-judgmental, client-centered, motivational way to really enhance behavior change is absolutely paramount. And if this is new for you, please don't panic, don't worry, don't, you know, if you're thinking, actually, I've not even thought of it this way, fantastic. This webinar has been successful already. If you're already in that zone, you're already kind of thinking along those lines, then some of these resources I'm pointing you towards hopefully will be places you can go to seek a little bit more information. So there's one book, Motivational Interviewing in Nutrition and Fitness by Dawn Clifford and Laura Curtis. Also, any counselling course, understand that is not to counsel a personal trainer. That's not what I'm saying, but the skills you can gain can be helpful. So a client is the best person to help themselves. We are just tools to help them towards it. Another resource is 100% Tony Robbins. I'm a raging Tony Robbins fan. Yeah, I've done the fist pump. I've gone on his 4-day Unleash the Power. I've booked on the next one. I was due on the one in March, April that got cancelled, obviously. And he is what's known as, he calls himself a practical psychologist. Now, he talks about breaking the pattern. So where Chris was talking about his failure in the New Year's resolution was based around a time zone, was not right. For others, it may be that you fell back into an old pattern of behavior. So why is that? Did we not break the cycle? And it may be things like you went back to the environment where everyone was eating cake. You spent time with the person who smokes and always goes, go on, have another fag. Can we break that pattern? Can we break the cycle? So Tony Robbins, 100%, I'm a raging fan of his. So can we use those strategies to then alter behavior and create new patterns and habits for life? Because it's no good, you know, these kind of transformations, the kind of very aesthetic goal setting. I get it. I've worked with bodybuilders a lot. You know, you see that a lot. People get these changes, fantastic. If you do those, brilliant. Is it long term? And if anybody's ever done, by the way, a shoot where you needed a 6-pack and you dieted down and you do the shoot feeling horrific and all you can think about is pizza, I'm with you, I've done it. That's not what I'm talking about. That might be for a competition or a show. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the people who want long term, you know, these fat loss clients who are just miserable, they're unhappy, the size limits them on their movement capacity, they get sores or the risk of diabetes or health conditions. I'm talking about these guys when it comes to aesthetics. It really is about quality of life. Yes, the aesthetic side, but it's about a long-term change. So how can we create these habits for life? So it's understanding behavior, long-term health. That client is the best person to help with that. So one of the things that is talked about in these ideas is asking permission to share an idea rather than being the expert. Now, there's got to be a balance, because we still have to help the client know that we're in control, because they often need that. That's why they're coming to us. They feel out of control. They want someone to take control. But there's a certain way that we should be managing consultations and sessions where, even though we're letting them know we're in control, I have strategies, I have this, is asking permission to share them. So I have a great idea. Would it be okay with you if I share a great idea for whilst it's hot about a smoothie. You know, rather than saying you need to eat more fruit and veg, so here's a recipe for a smoothie, we would say, I've got a great idea. Would you be happy for me to share with you a recipe that other clients have enjoyed when it's hot to blend up fruit, which may. So you can see there's quite a subtle shift and change in the language, but long-term proven and shown to help with long-term change. So I'm going to pause for a moment and just see if there's any more questions coming through. Just check in Insta. I know a few of you, no problem, Chris, coming through. Hi guys, just waving the new guys. So this video hopefully will stay. It will certainly stay on the Facebook page. I think it stays on Instagram. I'm not sure how long it will last, but I'm going to have to bring it to a close in a moment. Otherwise, Instagram will shut me down anyway. I think I've got an hour. Just pause for any questions. Excuse me while I'm across several platforms, and then I'm going to go through basic tips from this whole kind of webinar. So I can see that I've got like 35 comments on Facebook. Forgive me because for some reason I can't open them. And I'm not sure why. Oh, bear with me. Is that coming open now? So I can't actually see what they all are. I don't know why. They're in there, but I can't see them. Forgive me, guys. I will go back and have a look when I've finished so that I can type answers if there's anything I haven't addressed on the video. So my apologies for that. If anybody's any good at techie, can you let me know? How do I visualize? So I'm looking at Zoom, Instagram, and then I've got Facebook over here. So if you know how I can read the messages on Facebook, let me know. Okay. Can't see any questions coming in. Facebook, forgive me if you've asked any. I can't see them. So let's just bring this to a close. So about another 5 minutes, I'll go through these tips, and then we'll kind of draw it in, see if there's any final Q&As. But basically, it's probably smart under the current environment we're in, coming out of lockdown eventually, to study behavior change, motivational interviewing, listening skills, the ability to, we can all talk. Try and recognize when you are talking too much and you ask a question, you're not allowing the client to really think about what you've said, take a minute. Don't be too uncomfortable with pauses of when you're in a consultation. Don't feel like you've got to keep talking and reframing the question unless they look like they don't understand it, or you could ask them. Does that make sense? Let me give you a moment to think about it. And then you look down if you want, if you don't want to make them feel weird looking at you. Or even exploring counselling skills. You don't have to be a fully fledged counsellor. You can go on evening classes for 10 weeks at your local college to learn about open questions. So open questions mean I don't say to Robbie, does your back hurt? Because that's a yes or a no. I say to Robbie, can you talk to me about, explain how your back is making you feel, just describe how it's feeling for you, and just let me know your experience of it over the last week. So I'm opening it up so it avoids the simple yes, no responses. I think you've probably heard about that stuff. So allowing time. Hear, listen, shut up. Best advice is learn how to listen. Listen and hear, because sometimes they'll say things and it's like the idea of reading between the lines. Listen between the sentences. A client may be saying something and you're thinking, actually, are they trying to tell me something there? And just be careful, they may or may not want to share certain things, but it might enable you to ask further questions if you feel it's appropriate. Learn and practice a partnership. Try not to be an expert when you're with a client. And that kind of can sound like, conflicting for some, because you feel like, well, they want to know that I know what I'm on about. They'll know that. That's why they're there with you and paying you. You can still let them know you're in control and you know your stuff, but it's an agreement between you and them about their journey forwards to enable them to feel empowered, motivated, like they're doing it themselves rather than they need you. If they need you, they feel disempowered. So it's always about, look, I'm going to give you all the skills you need to look after your own body, but we're going to do it together for a while. Inevitably, that works. They're going to send you more clients. Don't worry about losing clients. our goal really should be to get rid of them as quickly as possible. That's my attitude towards it. Empowerment is key to long-term success. How can you empower them? So it's helping them feel that they're accountable to you to some degree, but giving them the ownership. How do we do that? Well, we make it a client-centered session, consultation. What would you like to do today? How are you feeling today? Would you like this, or how would you feel about this one? Giving them options, letting them make decisions. That's a huge part of learning about what they're more likely to do because they chose it, they prefer it, rather than being too dictatory. So we're guiding towards ideas. Smart goals, no brainer. We need to try and make it smart. Now I'm the same, and you know, I'm working with clients where it's kind of challenging sometimes, but we always have that conversation, so there's some degree of measurement, and I usually come back to it at a later date to just check in with them. They may now have come up with a really good SMART goal because they now get it, even though they've come because they've got a bit of a dodgy shoulder, they've got a bit of a niggle, they just want to make sure that it doesn't become something else. But try and guide them towards a movement goal, something that you can measure, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound. So that again is in an agreement, and let them know they're not fixed into that. They can change it, or you can change it. Just coming down to a comment from Back in Balance UK. I think it's more of a coaching approach rather than counselling. Also, I want my clients to take the responsibility of the actions. I'm totally with you on that. And I think understanding the difference between a trainer and a coach is key, which is where I think Stevie's suggestion of going to the UK coaching website can be helpful with that. So I'm happy to be challenged on that and talk about, but I'm qualified in both counselling and coaching. So it's just highlighting, I guess, the concept that studying the skills within counselling may be helpful, but I agree with you on the idea of coaching in our arena. Yeah, he's now under my feet, Yogi Lins, but yes, he's snoring at my feet. Trying to recognise stages of change. So if you haven't seen it or heard of it already, there's a trans-theoretical model, which is on the National Quality Assurance Framework, the NQAF, for low back pain. And it's used in different arenas, and it is, let me just give it to you just in a moment. So trans-theoretical model of change, if you actually stick it into the toolbar of your search engine, pre-contemplation, contemplation, determination, action, relapse, maintenance. Clients can come in and out of this, they can travel through it in a session over a period of time. So go and have a look. It's called the Stages of Change model. I can't remember who it was. I haven't got the reference on here, but it's on the National Quality Assurance Framework, or if you put it into the search bar, you will find it. And that can give you some idea when you study those different stages of change, maybe as to understanding where your client is and how best to work with them. Understanding the difference between empathy and sympathy. So you can be empathetic with somebody without actually having gone through something they've gone through. I think this is going to be key coming out of lockdown for us to understand the difference. You can be sympathetic and feel sorry for or feel for someone who's been through an experience. However, empathy is really understanding how they feel and being able to kind of almost sit in their shoes. And we can do that and show that through our vocabulary, but I would sort of use language like, I can only imagine how that might have felt, rather than I know how you feel. Because if you haven't been through something, or if they don't know you haven't been through something similar, and you say, I know how you feel, it can maybe subconsciously feel a little bit like you're putting it back to yourself, where you say, I can only imagine what that must feel like. You're kind of passing it back and saying, I'm thinking about you, and it's being empathic to your client. And finally, remember that the brain has what's known as neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity is exactly that. It's the nervous system is malleable. And I'm doing this because I'm imagining Play-Doh or plasticine, the old stuff I used to play with as a kid. Do they still have that? Do they still, is it still plasticine, or is that not allowed anymore? Is that illegal because it's got some toxicity to it? So everybody makes Play-Doh out of flour and I don't know. Anyway, so your nervous system can be altered both for mindset, psychology, movement, emotions, all of this. The nervous system is the software of your body, and we can influence that through our vocabulary, our language, our consultations, our movement, and everything else. So understanding it can change, letting the client know we can change things. It's about a partnership. We're going to work together. I can only imagine how you feel. I'm going to be here to help, but they're centered in that whole session. So I'm going to do a pause. We've got just a couple of minutes before I close off. Zoom, Instagram, I can see you. So if you've got any questions, Play-Doh, then let me know. He's having a scratch now, if you can hear my doggy. He's no longer snoring, he's awake on the yoga mat. He was doing yoga with me this morning, so there's a video coming for that if you like my dog videos. So just as I say, pausing just to see whether we've got any comments. Sadly, Facebook, for some reason, I cannot see the comments. There's like 35 comments over there, but I can't see them. So Robbie, Saif, any feedback, any comments? And down on Instagram, nothing coming through there. Okay. Okay, I'm going to start to bring this to a close, guys. I hope this was helpful to provoke thinking. I've put together a behavior change workshop, thanks Robbie, which I'm going to be offering online, coming soon. Once I've finished it all, I've got a PowerPoint to go with that. I've got lots of different stages of change. I've got 10 steps to behavior change. So it's a systematic way of addressing, helping clients to change. Some of the techniques that you might be able to then use to help you with your clients. Comments on Facebook were saying the same. Thanks, Robbie. You're very welcome, Safe. Great to have you along. So if you're interested in the behavior change workshop, obviously either type your email if you don't want to do it publicly, private message me. Before you go, we have the Biomechanics Education YouTube channel. All of these videos, these webinars are on there. You can go and watch the whole. We've been doing it for a couple of months now. There's all sorts of topics that I talk about. You post questions, and the idea was to just open up and facilitate discussion, and offer a platform where we can raise questions and points that we yeah, no problem, Alison. So did you get that book, Alison, for your Audible list? So yeah, the idea is go to the YouTube channel. There's a whole bunch of stuff on there. There's a load of free I'm Your 3D classes on there that I'm sharing, just trying to help people move well during lockdown and beyond. We've got the Biomechanics Education Facebook page, which we're live on right now. So Insta guys, you can find us over there. Facebook guys, I'm also over on Instagram. So whatever your preferred platform, we're on all of those. Private message me, make me your friend. So I am, Rachel France, biomechanics coach, passionate about, through you, helping more people move more freely with less pain. Sahif, you just go to YouTube, type in Biomechanics Education, and it should come up. So if you go over there, if you have any problems, email me, rachel@biomechanics.education.com. That's rachel@biomechanics.education.com. If you want anything, if you want any of the resources, if you want to suggest a topic for next week, I am only doing this for a limited period. So I have got several workshops coming up. Chances are I'll do them at this time slot. But this is going to come to a close around about mid-late August. and then it's going to start to become more active workshops, because I've talked my socks off every Wednesday, and I'd rather do it as a workshop. Bitty Man, you're very welcome. No problem. You can go back and watch it. Thanks for the feedback. Is it suitable for patients? Catherine, is what suitable for patients? And just to be clear, just to make sure that I'm understanding your, oh, Insta's gone. Oh dear. So download the video, share to Insta. Forgive me on Zoom and Facebook. Thank you, Robbie. There you go. Zaif, Robbie's just put the link on the Zoom channel. So Instagram's gone. Sorry, I've gone into my hour. Let's post them. I think that's it. Robbie, thanks for coming. Zaif, thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing that as well, Robbie. Over on Facebook, thanks for coming. See you next time. And yeah, get in touch. Have a great week. Take care, guys. Bye. Let's stop live stream.